Because it normally announces it.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon to people on the East Coast. Thank you so much for joining us on our webinar here today. We're just waiting for a few more people who are coming in as it just passes 11 o'clock here, or whatever your time zone is. But while we're waiting, please fill out this poll. We would like to know how much of your time is spent finding the root cause of the problem in your building automation system, your BACnet system, not just fixing it, but actually finding what's happening, what's causing a problem that you might have been called in for. So please fill out that poll, and we will get started in 1 minute. All right, thank you so much. So we'll get the results of that poll up. Welcome again. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited today to tell you a little bit more about troubleshooting your BACnet system in Visual BACnet. So for people who want to follow along with us as we go through this webinar today, I did send out the PCAPs that we'll be using, or you can go to visualbacnet.com/PCAP. And you can download the 3 PCAPs that we will be looking at, or 3 of the PCAPs that we'll be looking at today. If you'd like to get an account of Visual BACnet so that you can try the different things as we show them to you and be interactive and actually click the button, make sure it works, you can get an account at visualbacnet.com. Click on the main button on the front page there, and you can start your trial. During the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the question box to the right-hand side of your screen. We will do our best to answer those as they come up, or we'll answer the bulk of the questions at the end. So don't hesitate to throw those our way at any time. Finally, the session is being recorded, so we'll have this available for you after the webinar, and I'll be sending that out. So I'm very excited today to be joined by our CEO, Phuc Yao, who is here to walk you through Visual BACnet, a product that he was instrumental in developing and bringing to you today. So welcome, Ping.
Hi, Monica. Thank you. Okay, let's get started. Again, for everyone who's joined us in previous webinars, welcome back. Great to have you with us again. For the new ones, well, welcome to our series of webinar. As Monica said, today we want to look a little closer to the product we developed called Visual BACnet and how to use it for helping you in troubleshooting your BACnet systems. To be more exact, today we're going to focus a little bit more on the identifying side of the problem. So Visual BACnet can be used for multiple reasons. Today we're going to look at how to use it to help you reduce the time and frustration that you incur in finding problems or troubleshooting. All right, so just a very quick story for those who are not familiar with Visual BACnet. It is relatively new. We launched it in June with an exclusive group of incredible users, and it's gone viral for our industry right now. The reason why we built it is that we were talking to users, customers of ours. As a company, we are a networking company specializing in the smart building industry, and we were seeing how they were spending a lot of time trying to find problems in the amount of data that's being passed through the network. We saw some of our users use Wireshark, and we asked them if we could help them make it easier. And that's basically the birth of Visual BACnet. So today's format, Monica and I are actually in the same room. It doesn't look like it, but we'll walk you through the product. Again, as she said, please ask your questions as soon as you want, at any time you want. We'll try to make it fairly interactive, and let's go right into it. So Visual BACnet as a tool, as I mentioned just a minute ago, can be used for many reasons. Our users right now use Visual BACnet for 3 primary use the most dominant reason is to help them find problems, reducing the time and the frustration associated with it in finding problems that are in BACnet systems. Simple things like, I have a long delay. The system is not really responsive. To harder problems like, I have a lot of vendors integrated together, and I'm not really sure if they're accepting a certain message, or why my device is not responding. Do I have duplicate device ID? Did I miss a incorrect programming? Things like that. So reducing time in troubleshooting BACnet systems. The second use. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to jump in here with a bit of an example. I called one of our customers, or one of our users, earlier this week, and they're they work in a head office helping their customers and their users troubleshoot and find problems. And they had saved that very morning. They spent about a couple minutes on Visual BACnet and saved. He estimated 30 minutes trying to find an unresponsive device in Wireshark. So rather than pulling apart 3 different PCAPs and trying to find what those unresponsive devices were, just going into Visual BACnet, he was able to find them really quickly and pull in all 3 PCAPs and analyze that without needing half an hour.
Yeah. Thank you, Monica. The second use case is what we call benchmarking, is getting an idea of how your system is doing. Perhaps it doesn't have a problem, or perhaps it does have a problem. How are things looking? Can you score, can you quantify the quality of your BACnet system? That's what we call benchmarking. Now, it can obviously help with troubleshooting, but a lot of it is, you go into a job that already has a system in there. Maybe you want to find out what it looks like before you start adding devices or changing programming. There's, as a sales guy, you might want to have the ability to show your customer the quality of your work. So benchmark the quality of your work. So benchmarking is a very, very powerful aspect of Visual BACnet.
Yeah. So another vendor that we worked with was very excited about this aspect, because they were able to go into a building, put in a PCAP, and find that the health of their network was 6%, and then go and change a few things in the network, improve it, and then see that throughout over the course of a day, they were able to bring it up to 36%, which is a measurable impact that they were then able to go back and show the building owner and the integrator what impact they had made, and prove that they had improved the system as a vendor.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, it is not used a lot for this third use case, but we're seeing that aspect of it growing very quickly. It is the side of auditing, more specifically on asset management or cybersecurity auditing. BACnet systems are very open. They're very rich in a lot of vendors are part of one system very often. We're seeing more and more users using Visual BACnet to give them an idea of what they have there. So the first step with cybersecurity is know what you want to secure. We're not going to dive into that today, but again, the third use case is auditing.
And we do have some consultants who are starting to mandate that that be a part of the process. They may not understand Wireshark or have ever pulled a PCAP before, but this is allowing them to get information that they didn't have access to previously, so they're mandating specific thresholds.
Yeah, thank you. So again, very quickly, why would you use Visual BACnet? One is help you reduce time in troubleshooting, second is benchmarking, and the third is auditing. And again, today we're going to focus on the first of the 3, which is troubleshooting in Visual BACnet, and then join us in a few weeks for the other 2 topics. All right, let's dive into it. Before we open a tool, I figured I'd just navigate around a little bit just to help orient ourselves, and then we'll dive right into it. So this is a snapshot of Visual BACnet, a dashboard in Visual BACnet. There's many components there, so let's just walk you through it right now. Okay. Not working. I apologize. In the middle is a network health. It's kind of the cornerstone of the whole product. Everything is centered around this. It's what we call the network health score. We'll come back to that again. Second section, which is kind of these 2 blue boxes, is what we call statistics. Counter statistics helps you kind of see what the data is there. The third box here is a overview traffic graph. There's many other graphs available in Visual BACnet, but there's an overview graph. And on the right-hand side, probably one of the most powerful aspects of Visual BACnet is what we call the Diagnostic Checks and Diagnostic Check panel. Again, we'll dive into that.
I'm just going to cut in here. I'm getting that a few people are having trouble hearing us. So maybe if you're having trouble hearing us, throw a question in the question box so we can get an idea of how bad the problem is.
Thank you. Let's keep going. Again, if the audio is bad, please let us know. We'll adjust that. Let's keep going. This section here is the notes. The notes section, we'll get to that later. On the top right-hand side, you have your start time, end time of the capture. How much time was the capture worth, right? At the very, very corner, you'll find your account information and more account settings. And then on the left-hand side is your, what we call your side panel. The side panel has a lot of other aspects of it, as a couple browsers, additional graphs, and then this is where you're going to use to navigate to and from between different captures. Okay. Just quickly, to use Visual BACnet, the typical flow is to start with a capture. I'll come right back to that again. Then take the file that you captured. It may be a 5-minute capture, maybe an hour, 5 hours a day. Upload that to visualbacnet.com. And then typically what we recommend is start by taking an overview look, right? Look at the score. What does the score look like? Look at the diagnostic check, just from a high-level point of view. If you know what the problem is, you might want to skip that part. But if you're not really sure, get an idea of what the problem might be. And then drill down, dive in, explore, poke around, maybe bounce between Visual BACnet and Wireshark if you really want to go into a lot of details. All right, let's go right into the tool. Do we have any info on the audio? Is it okay?
It seems to be okay at the moment, so we'll see how that goes.
Great. So again, if you don't have Visual BACnet yet, feel free to sign up. It's free to try for 2 weeks at visualbacnet.com. Right, so just log in. It is an online product. From there, you'll get your file management dashboard. Here, you can store all your files. Your files will be stored there as long as you have an account with us. We give you quite a bit of disk space. Put in some notes, whatever you want. You can create folders. One very good use of folders is you might want to create a folder per site. Then that way you can go and compare them over time.
We also have people using a folder per ticket if it's a center that's getting a lot of problems, different things like that.
Yeah, and folders can have multiple levels also within it. So you can embed folders within folders. I forgot to mention, I wanted to go right back to the flow I just brought up a second ago. On the capture side, for those who are not familiar, where to capture, where to get the information you want. Ideally, what we want is the capture of all BACnet frames on the entire system. Now, that's not very easy to do. A couple ways you can do it is through a hub, which are basically not available anymore in the market, unfortunately. Or the second is if you have access to a good switch and you know how to do it, or you can ask for IT department to help you, is set up what we call mirror port or spanning port. And that will allow you to capture all information going to and from any port of that switch. Again, that's fairly difficult to do, or fairly intrusive sometimes for IT. They don't really like it. So the majority of our users will capture on the workstation, on the BMS, on the controller. So any PC that you can access, you can download Wireshark free or install Wireshark and run it right from there. Also keep an eye on our blog. We'll be releasing a little tip on how to capture using a very small component of Wireshark. Wireshark is a very powerful tool, but if all you want to do is capture, there's a DOS format of it that allows you to capture very easily. And then last but not least, Steve Card on his website has a really good article on how to capture your Mstp loop. So using a 485 RS-485 to USB adapter, you can capture your Mstp loops fairly easily. Now, in that case, you do have to have physical access to your Mstp network.
And we'll send a link to that in the follow-up email after the webinar.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Right. So right from the screen, once you have a PCAP file, feel free to grab it, drag and drop it, or you can click the upload button. Oops. And
while Ping is doing that drag and drop, we had a great tip from Greg. Thank you, Greg. Big shout out there. Saying in our industry, there's a great switch for unicast capture. So I'm going to send that to everyone through the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. We have lots of really great friends, I think, online right now with us. So thank you for joining us. Okay, so upload the files, and then we'll process it automatically in the background. You don't have to wait for that. You can dive right into it. I'm just going to bring one up right now and navigate around. And for the structure over the next 20 minutes, what we'll do is we'll just show you the general sections in Visual BACnet, and then we'll dive into it. We'll look at a few of these actual problems and how to find the information. But let's just start by seeing what we have around. As I said, we have the score here, right in the middle. That's really the centerpiece of Visual BACnet. We've been working with a lot of great industry people creating a very elaborate scoring system, scoring scheme. So if you click on that, you can see what the scheme looks like. It's divided up in your score checks and your critical checks. And for every one of these checks, we have different thresholds. We'll show you where those thresholds are in a moment. And we go through your PCAP file, your capture, and we score it. And at the end of it, it gives you a score. You can see where you lose your points. And then you have your critical checks. Critical checks are checks that we deem should not have a bonus for not having it, but you get docked for having such problems. So, for example, you definitely don't want duplicate device IDs. You don't want circular loops. Error checksums are really bad. Not having it doesn't make you a superstar, but having them is a big problem. Yeah. So this particular example is very bad, but those are your diagnostic checks. And over the next few months, I'm sure we're building more as we work more and more with a lot of you guys and ladies here to try to create a better scoring system. The objective here is that we can use this as a benchmark, right? So 6% is bad, 95% is good. You walk in tomorrow and it's at 12%, it went better. Your 95% went down to 82%, and something changed. That's the objective of the network score here.
One thing I will point out about that network score is when you do put your PCAP file in, we've had a few people who put in a PCAP file that has no BACnet traffic. So make sure you keep an eye. There is the breakdown there in the summary area. Make sure that there is some BACnet traffic. Otherwise, you're going to have 100% network because there's nothing to be analyzed and diagnosed in it. So best practices is definitely to make sure you have up to at least 50% BACnet and BACnet broadcast combined, and have a decent, 20-minute minimum capture to do that benchmarking.
Thank you. We'll be building in some of these checks into the tool, but before that happens, just check it for yourself, as Monica is saying. So let's keep going on what Monica was saying here. You have some statistics on the left-hand side, 2 boxes. It breaks it down, so you have your summary, for example, how many packets you have. There's a 4 megabyte capture, and you have about 90% is BACnet, of which a large percentage in this example is BACnet broadcast. You can click on these, and it'll give you a little bit more breakdown information. Statistics summary here, you have 8 statistics that we will present to you. So, for example, device observed. So, how many devices were captured in this capture? Sorry, how many devices are present in this capture? Again, we'll come right back to that in a moment. On the right-hand side is your diagnostic check. So, right now we have about 22 checks. Yeah, 22 checks. Each of these checks go through an elaborate check. So, for example, looking for the presence of global whois, looking for unresponsive devices. At any point, you can click on these. It includes what we call knowledge base. It explains what the check is, what the objective is, and in some cases, we will provide kind of a typical fixing or a typical case, reason why this may be a problem. What causes the problem, I mean. Again, we'll drill down a little bit more with that in a moment. Right here you have your overall graph, overview graph. So all we look at is non-BACnet versus BACnet. If you wanted to, you can toggle them. But for example, here in my mind, I look at it and I can see spikes every minute about. So anyone who has been working with BACnet systems for a while, you can probably guess what's happening here. But this is a good indication. It helps you leveraging the power of the human mind, human brain and eyes, using visualization in this case to help you locate problems.
I'll also add that this is one of the only places that we, other than Mstp, that we actually show and add value to the non-BACnet traffic. So sometimes clicking on that non-BACnet to see if something looks a bit different or looks a bit off in the non-BACnet piece can help you troubleshoot your network outside of BACnet. Right,
thank you very much. Now, in the notes section here, you can say first check, right? Check again. So you can add a note. You can decide whether you want this note to show up on the report or not. The reports will get there in just a second, but it's a PDF format of this information here. A lot of users will use that for their documentation or pass it on to a peer, pass it on to their boss, or perhaps even pass it on to a customer. So in that case, if you said, I messed up here, you might not want your customer to see that. You can decide not to show on the report. But let's, for here, this example, we're going to show on the report, and you can add these notes and add more and more of them.
For example's sake, why don't we add a second one that won't show on the report?
Yeah.
So we can make it clear that we're not going to screw it up and have some comment we don't want shown on your report.
That's right. So here it is. Of course, you can delete them also, but very good for auditing trail, right? If you're going across them and you want to remember what you found here. Let's keep going. Because we were just looking at the notes, we're going to go right to the report. Right here, generate PDF. Click on that. It will generate a PDF version of this information there. And again, the notes will be part of it. Second here. Uh-oh. Did my screen freeze?
This is the exact time when your screen would freeze.
That's right. All right. Okay, I'll bring it up in a second. Let's keep going. Before I forget, because we're already in that section here, there's a capture setting right here. If you click on that, it will show you the thresholds that we use for each of these checks. And it will also allow you to enable or disable this check. Now, for everyone out there, note that the thresholds are not modifiable. That you cannot modify them as a user right now. We've been consulting with a lot of users, a lot of you guys and ladies here to understand whether or not this would be valuable. We decided that if we allowed everyone to change the thresholds, then the score is no longer trustworthy. So that is the reason behind it. But if you absolutely need access to these thresholds, contact Monica. Contact any of us. We can give you access to modify these thresholds. So, for example, if you wanted to disable a certain check, you don't want a check to impact your score, you can click off right here. There's a little bug there, but I'll fix that. And you can leave a comment. Decided to disable this check temporarily. And again, this note here will show up on the report that you generate.
These ones will all show up on the report that you generate. So keep that in mind as you don't say, oh no, I screwed this one up on this.
That's right.
In this screen.
That's right. That's right. You cannot decide whether or not you want it to show up in your report or not. All right. So you can see here the global who is. I disabled it, so it no longer impacts your score. So if you notice, it was at 6%, it went up to 12% in this case. We're going to go to the left-hand side. This is our side tab. There's a lot of great little goodies here. So first of all, if you were to go back to File and bring up another check, it will open up another section on the left-hand side. You can navigate between the files just by clicking on the file name. Okay, here it is. And then let's look at some of the graphs. So this is an excellent one to look at, these spikes. What are these spikes? By the way, you can drag and drop, well, actually drag and release to zoom in. Same concept here. So there's the most powerful graph here is what we call the traffic by source and destination. Click on that. It will give you pretty much all the breakdowns you could imagine in a graphical format. Give it a moment. There's a lot of data points here. It's just going to render it. But you see here at the top row, you get your filters. You can filter by source, by destination, or service choice, as you wish. So again, you can zoom in here, and it will show you this information. You can hover your mouse over it, and it will break down. It will highlight what is part of that box. So here, it is an IAM 28 packets in that second. You can go up and see more of it. Again, here, if you wanted to find a specific source, so 192, 168, 199, 52, let's say. And I just want this guy here. It would just show you the information with that source. Note that it won't use, if this IP address is used as a destination, it will not show up here. Let's just remove that for a moment. Just some tricks and tips to navigate around. So we showed you the drag and release to zoom in. You can, right now it's sorted by the name of the data type, sorry, the data point. If you want to sort by max, click on max here. Okay. So here it will show you that in this time frame that we just highlighted, it shows 85 packets. And again, you can keep clicking on any of them. It will filter in or just out that one. If you click on control, you can highlight multiple ones if you wanted to.
So this is really great. Our diagnostic checks give a pretty good overview of a lot of the things that we and people in the industry have deemed quite important. But sometimes there are specific issues that are specific to one building or one system. So this is a nice way to be able to drill in and see, for example, an IAM form that we may not have a diagnostic check for, but it's still accessible in Visual BACnet through some of these different graphs and different information that we present and allow you to choose how you drill down a little bit more.
Thank you. So there's a couple more graphs. Feel free to navigate around and see what you get there. A response time is another graph that looks at just the response time. By the way, the way we define response time is the time delay between a confirm request and the matching acknowledgement. So that's the response time here. This particular capture here, there's nothing really too out of the ordinary, but this is another graph that allows you to drill down if you wanted to. Okay, let's keep going. If you click on device observe here, it will show you, as I said, all the devices that were present in this capture. Another way to access that is the device browser, which is exact same place. We have broken it down into two sections. We have the observed device fully identified. Fully identified means that it had a match, an IAM, which allows us to extract the device ID, the network, and the address, sorry, the S network and the S address. On the right-hand side, just so you know, this is the count of the occurrence of this device in the capture. On the bottom side, the second half of it is your partially observed devices. So these are devices that may have had a read request, but all we get is the device ID, for example, or a who is. We only get a part of this information. So these are the partially observed devices.
Keep in mind, hopefully I'm not stating the obvious, but keep in mind that this is only devices that are active during that capture. So if you do put in a 2-minute capture and you see there's only 8 devices, it's not because they aren't necessarily active, but they may not have been active during those 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. That is why we do recommend a capture about 20 minutes. And if you do have access to do a discovery, click a discovery. It will make sure that all devices do show up. Right. I think the last but not least in the actual left-hand side, the actual content is a BACnet browser. These are for the advanced users here, and there's a few of them online, I know that. This is basically just Wireshark, but hopefully in a click version instead of using filters, allows you to click through that. So first of all, you start with the starting filter you want to use. If you want to say, look at just who is, Click on PDU type. Who is an unconfirmed request. Click on that. Click on who is. Now we show you all the who is by source. The count here is your number of who is sent by this source. If you want to drill down more, you can click on any of them. And now it shows you this who is was a broadcast. In this case, 255 at the end, the last octet of the IP address 255 does indicate broadcast. So you click on that, and now it's going to bring you to really the detail. This is the Wireshark level. So here is every who is frame sent by this .991 to broadcast, and then the frame number here correlates to your Wireshark capture file. So if you wanted to, you can bring up Wireshark, you go to frame 61, and you would see the exact same detail that you would see in Wireshark.
So for our Wireshark lovers out there, we do have people that are using this in conjunction with Wireshark. You just can't get enough of Wireshark. Love those frames.
All right, let's go right back here. I think a couple last things. Talked about reports and comments. I think the two last things here. If you go to your top right-hand side settings, it is your custom BACnet port. So right now, Visual BACnet by default will look at any traffic, UDP traffic going in on port BAC 0 to BAC F, which is 47808 to 47823. But if you are using a non-standard BACnet port, you can enter it here before you load your file. So if you go from your file screen, if you know you're using a custom BACnet port, go here, settings, enter the port that you're using, save it, upload the file, and then it will use that custom port for the rest of the Visual BACnet flow.
Why don't we pull up that report that we opened earlier?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see if I got it.
Figure out where it went.
Yeah.
I'll see what the weather was like in Port Moody today.
Yes. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do a little fun thing here. I think all of you, or actually many of you, have received some type of message from Monica.
Probably all of you.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. This message here does go directly to Monica, to our developers, and just to show it does, we're going to do a little fun thing here and just ask for help. It goes directly to her phone in this case and her laptop.
So to prove that, I am going to take a picture on my phone. Oh, I'm getting alerts about paying needing help. Going to take a quick photo.
Oops.
And send that. Oh, it's a terrible photo, but that's okay.
Okay. The report that we were telling you about, it's brought up here. It comes up, and then it's all the details that we were talking about earlier, including the notes that we mentioned. Oh, here we go. Notes. First check again. From me, created at this time, and the one that I said, I think, oops, I screwed up, or what have I done, does not show up. I think I disabled a check here. So just make sure, yeah, global who is disabled, and the comment is that the decided to disable this temporarily.
Hopefully your comments are a little more useful.
Yes, than the one I'm using here, yeah. Again, this report has everything from the high-level information down to a little bit more lower-level grain. So, for example, it will show you the top 10 offenders of each check. All right. Oh, hello, Monica.
I told you it was a bad photo, but
yes. But anyway,
it was in the moment.
This is just to show that don't hesitate. If you need help, just click on that. We're here to help. And as you can see, one of the guys here who is not part of the webinar right now said, "What can I do to help?"
So we're all here to help, and we are real people. We're not outsourced robots somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. We haven't yet, anyways.
Yeah.
All right. So again, the health score in the middle. diagnostic checks on the right-hand side. There's 22 of them right now, a bunch of statistics. You can drill down into them if you wanted to. For example, at BBMD, click into that, and it becomes basically a Wireshark filter. It allows you to look at these frames a little quicker than what you could do in Wireshark, hopefully. And then, again, the chat on the right-hand side, navigation panel on the left-hand side. All right, enough said about the general things. Let's look at something a little bit more in detail. So I'm just going to go and re-enable this global whois before I forget.
And when you're on this page, always make sure you hit the Save Changes.
Right, thank you. All right, so in this capture here, as I mentioned earlier, there's some interesting spikes here. So when I said upload the file, if you're not really sure what you're looking for, take a moment and look at the more overviews. Before you click into anything, take a look. So here's what I see. I see the score is extremely bad. That's bad. But I do see that my capture is probably quite relevant. 90% of that is BACnet. I have about 45,000 packets. So it's a decent amount of packets. 20-minute capture is pretty decent. Again, I can see the checks. You know, some of them are okay, but a lot of them really bad. I look at the graph. We talked about this already. And here, the spikes, I mean, it does help that I know this capture quite well. If you just take a moment, you look at this 46 global whois, there's a good number of these spikes. It happens to correlate in this case. That is why global whois, especially when they're not used carefully, can be very detrimental to your system.
And there are some systems and vendors who actually have it set up to send the global whois every minute. So this is a great way to realize that because it's not always necessary and not always the best practice. Yeah, and just as a tip here, the global whois are fine if your system is relatively small, but when your system is scaling up, it's definitely one of the main reasons for bottlenecks, slowdowns, and just flat out break into the system. So you can imagine here a global whois is going out to the world and saying to every single device hearing it, please respond with an IM. In this particular case, is responding, and some of these devices are responding more than once. So that's an added problem here. There's quite a few other problems here, right? And so at this point, what I would do is I would click on the score. It gives you a stronger idea of where you lost your points. You know, start with your critical checks because these ones should just flat out not happen at all. Duplicate device ID. I can tell you in this particular case, it's just a device that have both in support on both sides, I think, and the global whois reaching both sides and it's responding on both sides at different source address. That's the reason why. But just some interesting ones. So here, error responses. Now you only have 4, so it's not too bad. But I just want to use this as an example. If you click on that, your error responses, it will show you a little bit more information around these errors. So again, this is a frame number that corresponds with Wireshark. If you want to go back to Wireshark and click on any of them, and it will show you the matching request that produced the error. So here's the request that was sent out, and then just a few frames after, the error came back, and for those who want to drill down, you can see that the reason for the error here, error code, is an unknown object. So this device here is probably misprogrammed in this case, asking for an object that doesn't exist. This is one of the aspects that I've had probably the most feedback in terms of tangible time savings. Being able to find that confirm request and not having to comb through Wireshark, especially, you know, it's fine if they are the packets are one apart, but sometimes they're hundreds and thousands of packets apart. So rather than having to export to Excel and sort and filter different ways, this is one of the very tangible ways to save you some time.
Yeah, to complement what Monica said there, I'm quite familiar with Wireshark and can tell you doing this in Wireshark would require you to, first of all, filter for your error packets. So that's a certain type, I think it's type 5. And then look for the invoke ID, and then remove the filter, look for all the requests from to that specific device, with the matching invoke ID. So it's a 2-3 step process, and if you have more than one error, you could probably spend a good 5 to 10 minutes just finding the frame itself. And if you want to flip between the two, I mean, you could mark the frames in Wireshark, but it's not that easy. Here, just click between the two, and you can flip between them. All right, let's keep going. So we were just talking about how these spikes, let's see what they are. I'm going to click on here. And we'll give it a second here. We'll zoom in, and I'll spoil the surprise here. You can see very quickly that it's a stacked number of IAMs. So if you zoom in, it's just a lot of IAMs from the devices responding to global whois. So in this case, go back, find who is sending the global whois. If you go back to the summary page, you can find it very quickly.
You can also sort the total number and see that the IAMs are definitely the most packets.
Yeah, so IAM here, we'll find just the IAMs. And you still see the spikes. There are nearly 400 packets in that particular second. And if you wanted to, you can zoom in some more. Although at some point it stops giving you much more information. I'm going to come back to what Monica just said there in just a second, but global whois, you can click on that and we'll show you who is sending these global whois. Right, so this device, in this case, is the same device that has both a BACnet over Ethernet and a BACnet over IP interface. That's why it looks as two different sources. But what Monica just said, if you wanted to just triple check that, you could go to PDU type. I don't know what happened there. PDU type. And now IAMs are unconfirmed requests. Click on unconfirmed request. And so out of, if you remember at the beginning, there were about 45,000 packets. 15,000 of these packets are IAMs. And if you want to click on that, it will sort again by the highest number of IAMs, by the source. All right, let's keep going. Do we have any questions?
No, we have one that we'll hold on to the end, but
sure.
Other than that, no,
sure. Sounds good. Okay, we're gonna come. How are we doing in time? Okay, we're gonna skip forward to an Mstp file. Let's see here. I'm gonna bring up an Mstp file. Unfortunately, I cannot release this for everyone. I haven't had the chance to scrub it, so there is sensitive data there. Although it's Mstp, so it's not too bad. I just wanted to show you something here. This is an Mstp capture, and just so you know, in Mstp, non-BACnet are your tokens, basically. Any non-BACnet frames are deemed non-BACnet. So in this case, about 55% is BACnet, 45% are tokens and requests for polling, requests for master, things like that. So if you look here, actually we're just going to do what I said here. We're going to click on, take a look at globally. So it's a 5-minute capture. There's 52,000 packets. So it's a good amount of packets. The graph, I mean, it doesn't look too bad. It's not. It's fairly steady. So it's either bad consistently or it's good consistently. 28%. We're going to click on that again, and some of the things to look for here. So there's a very high rate of write properties. So at least one device is writing a fairly large amount of write properties. So something to watch out for here. Average round trip time. So we calculate the amount of time it takes to go around in the loop in your Mstp network. So going from device 0 all the way to 255 or whatever your max device is and coming back around. So average round trip time is 1.1 second. Fairly long in this case. That's not great, but let's just say that's not too bad. The interesting one here is a standard deviation. So what this means here, this is the difference between the longest time and the shortest time around the loop. So if your system is consistently busy, right? So you've pushed the limit, but you're still within the limit. You would have a very high average time, but your standard deviation will be very low. You will consistently be doing a lot of work. That's okay, right? It means you don't have a lot of headroom. You can't add, a lot more programming, a lot more data polling or more devices. But you're doing fine. But in this case, the standard deviation is very high, which means that sometimes the time to go around the loop is very short, sometimes it's very long, and anything around above about 100 milliseconds, it typically means that a token was lost. At least one device lost a token, and that is why it took so long to go around the loop. And just to show that, we have token disruptions, one of the check. If you click on that one, the check in particular in this case will look for a reply to poll for master. So we can see that 64 asked 66 to, if you want it to be master, which for those who are fairly experienced, you can see here, you can probably guess that at some point 65 lost the token, got stuck for a while, then 64 took it over again and asked would 66 be the master, and then it took over again, and it went around, and then it checked if 65 was back around after, I think it's 50 cycles, if I remember correctly. So that, hence the very long time around your loop. And just again, to show that, it's just another way to access this information. If you click on standard deviation or the average token round trip time, it gives you very similar information. We're just going to sort by standard deviation here on the right-hand side. So my standard deviation is very, very high. And you can see the min and the max is very different, right? 230 milliseconds, the fastest time to pass a token from 64 to 65. And then the longest time is nearly 60 seconds. Again, if you click on, yeah, it's very long. Yeah, your customer won't be so happy if it takes that long to get some basic information.
Probably why you're there.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Again, here, if you clicked on that, it will show you the time, the frame that, again, correlates to Wireshark capture that actually did the passing of tokens from device 64 to 65. The interesting thing here is you clicked on elapsed and you sort it by max. You can see that this frame here, the last time 64 passed to 65 successfully was nearly a minute ago. That's what it means. Okay, so if you wanted to, you can go back to Wireshark and try to find what was the last time it was tried to send. So again, for those who are working on Mstp a lot, typically this means that you have a CRC error. You have a lost token because of communication errors. Again, I'll spare that detail, but what we could do is go to Wireshark, locate 39914, and then search backwards for the last entry where 64 tried to send a token to 65. I did the exercise. I'll approach it a little differently, and then just show you where this information could be found. Checks on errors. So these are packets with errors. We can click on that. And because we suspect the problem to be a token, it's a non-BACnet frame. And the source was 64, I believe. So just going to go down here. 64. 64 sent to 65, a token with a CRC error. So you see here, bad CRC, bad checksum. So this frame was rejected by the destination, by device 65, either rejected or never got it, and that's why the packet was lost. Sorry, the token was lost. Yeah, and then you can see there's even more problems later on. 64 going to 65, pull from asset also has a CRC error. I mean, this system here has some wiring problems, it looks like. So a lot of details here, but basically, if you use this health check to show you where the problems are, and you take the time to drill down and look at the major violations. So token disruptions are major violations. Click on that, and it should give you an idea. And again, as I said earlier, the support team is here for you. If you want some help to help you dive into it, click Monica, we're right there to help you, or if she can't, she'll pass it on to some of our developers.
Yeah, so a little bit more on that. We are always here to support, so you'll probably get sick of getting emails and phone calls from me at some point. As I think a lot of you already know, because I know a few of you have gone on and tried out Visual BACnet, you can try it for 2 weeks, which is definitely the best way to really understand it. I mean, we can tell you about all these great features, but It really takes trying it out on your own buildings and digging into it to understand it completely. And on that note, the chat and I am not just here to help. Oh.
Pardon me?
Can people still hear me? Hopefully. If people have questions about what they're seeing in their PCAP or the health of their system or how to analyze a file that may not be the actual how Visual BACnet works, we're always here to give you our thoughts on what's happening in your system. And as well, we're always looking for feedback on what may be confusing to you so that we can make the user interface better, add the more important checks, diagnostic checks, and different things like that.
And just to close off, we're coming to the end of the webinar. For the more junior users, as I said, use this to give you a sense of where the problems are. The score in the middle is very, very powerful. If your score is 70% plus, you're on the right track. If your score is bad, click on it, look at the critical checks. It gives you an idea where to look for problems. For more advanced users, very often you'll use this because you already have a sense, you have an idea of where the problems are. Let this help you confirm it. Let you help this drill down faster than what we can do in Wireshark. I mean, a lot of our users still use Wireshark in conjunction, as Monica was saying, but this helps you pinpoint the problem, and then you can go to Wireshark and drill down a little bit more get more details. So that is it. We're hoping that Visual BACnet can really help a lot of you save a tremendous amount of time in troubleshooting for the junior techs. If you were scared of using Wireshark, Visual BACnet is a very, very easy replacement for it. It gives you a sense of whether or not you need to go into and look for help from other users. And then for the more advanced technicians, things like finding error packets, finding long response times, duplicate device IDs. These are checks that are fairly difficult or almost impossible to do in Wireshark. And hopefully this will save you a lot of time in finding those problems and confirming it.
Yeah, so now that we've given you our explanation of how we see Visual BACnet being useful to you, we'd actually love to just put another poll in quickly and see how you see Visual BACnet being useful to you. We want to know how we can best support you in your job. So we'll just get the poll popped in, and we'll get you to fill that out. While the poll is happening, please also put any questions that you have. I know we have 2 questions here from Gerald and Bob, and we will get those answered as soon as we can. But while we're waiting for this poll, also put any other questions you have, and Hang and I will do our best to answer them. So while you are responding to that poll, why don't we start their very related questions. This one is, I think, a 5-part question.
Okay, all right.
So Bob, thank you for that. When a file is uploaded, is it on a secure server? And when it's deleted, is it truly deleted? What's in place to protect the files, the sensitive data, and are there plans to release a standalone product?
Wow,
4-part question.
Yeah, very, very good question. Thank you, Bob. Yes, it is uploaded to a secure server. No one has access. All the user data is isolated, so your data would not cross over to someone else's. We take privacy and security very, very seriously, so we train our staff here to make sure that the data does not leak into anywhere else, to use it very, very carefully. Your upload is done using SSL, so it is secure from that standpoint. If that is even more important and you want a standalone product, we do have Visual BACnet Enterprise, which is the exact same product but delivered either through VM, a virtual machine, or on a box of its own. Pricing is very, very different, but if that is of interest to you, contact Monica. She'll give you more information. So there is the ability of having your own box, basically.
When in doubt, contact me.
Yeah, when in doubt, contact me. Yeah, that's right, correct. Yeah.
And the other question was just answered. It was also, can the software be purchased outright? So there is an enterprise version, but for the online version, it's a monthly subscription or an annual subscription. Yeah, and also I'll just add to that. As I said, the product's relatively new. We are developing very, very quickly. In fact, you can see here where version 1.6.4, version 1.6 was released 2 Fridays ago.
So as we find bugs, as we find problems and improvements, we update it very, very, very quickly. So we're asking the industry here to help us build this. So that is why we're not releasing this outright software just yet, because there's so much to do. There's so much benefit in working together to get the best product together. But again, Visual BACnet Enterprise is an option to all.
Okay, so we're just going to close the poll and we'll take a look at the results. Okay, so drilling down to find the cause of problems is going to be the main use of Visual BACnet, and then understanding the overall network health. That's really great for us to know, and I think that that fits quite well with how it was designed and who we see our users being, right. how we see it being used.
I wanted to add a second part to the question from Bob and also Lynn here, in terms of, will IT department have a problem uploading PCAP files? We can't really comment too much on that one. It is a little bit out of our hands. We have heard cases where the IT department does not like it, but we've also heard cases where, as long as it's secure and the file is handled carefully, they're okay with it. By the way, I do remember Bob had a question: if the deleted file is a file truly deleted? The answer is yes, completely. Also, just a trick, if you are concerned about that, one of the tricks to use is to upload only BACnet frames. Now, Visual BACnet today analyzes mostly BACnet frames. Not having the non-BACnet frame will reduce the benefit of overlapping it in your graphs. But typically, IT folks will be okay with just the BACnet frames going out. There's no passwords part of it. There's no credit card information part of it. There's no highly secure, highly sensitive information part of it. So if you want, I think we have a link on the website. If not, contact Monica again. We have a short video showing you how to capture using Wireshark on just the BACnet ports, the BACnet frames.
And we've also had IT departments that have pulled the PCAP for the user so that they can be confident that it has the right information.
Yeah.
Just depends on the IT department.
Good.
Great. Well, I don't see any more questions. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out to me through any of the means that you now know are available to you. And we do have very regular webinars here at Optigo on a variety of topics. Our next one is in 2 weeks, October 5th, on cybersecurity in Bagnat. So definitely sign up for that, optigo.net/webinars. We'll also send it out in the follow-up email. And I look forward to you using Visual BACnet and hearing about it through the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for joining us today on our webinar.
Thank you. Have fun, everyone.